Dave here from the Peppy team. You're all very welcome. And thank you so much for spending your lunchtime with us today. We know how packed your diaries are, so we are really genuinely thrilled to have you here with us today. It's Men's Health Week, as you all know, but this isn't your usual awareness raising, wear a blue ribbon and move on kind of session. This one's different. Because here's the thing, men are still dying too young, too silently, too often. Let's call it out for what it is. One in five men won't make it to retirement age. 75% of suicides in the UK are men. 65% of men delay seeing a doctor, many until it's too late. And half of men feel ashamed or afraid to talk about mental health at work. Even reading them out is quite stark. Now, take a second. Let that actually land. These aren't just stats. They're sons, partners, dads, mates, and colleagues. So yes, this is a workplace issue. But the good news, we can do something about it. And we don't need to wait for the government white papers or awareness days to start. Today is about turning talk into real, measurable, meaningful action. Before we get into it, just a few housekeeping items. I just need to cover off a few bits. In today's session, this is being recorded and we'll send out the link after the event, so there's no need to take any furious notes. We'll be running a live poll in just a moment, and we'd love for you to take part. It'll help us tailor the session for you. You'll also notice a Q&A box. Please do pop in any questions you might have there throughout the conversation, and we'll leave time at the end to answer as many as we can. However, throughout the session, we will have one of our fab men's health clinicians, Julie, and she'll be available to answer any questions that you might have about men's health. And finally, if you're having any technical difficulties, hopefully not, you can email marketing@peppy.health. So now that fun stuff is covered, let's get into the session. So you're going to hear from some really brilliant, funny, great human beings today. First off, Bernadette Kilban, Peppy's leading men's health practitioner and a walking encyclopedia of wisdom and empathy. How are you, Bernadette? Aaron Barnett, lifestyle expert, all-around legend, and your movement motivator for today. And last, by certainly no means least, Mark Brooks, OBE. If you've read anything serious about men's health in the UK over the last 20 years, chances are Mark had a hand in it. He's not just part of the conversation, he's really helped shape it. Mark has spent decades driving real change in how we talk about, understand, and support men's health, influencing government policy, advising countless organizations, and leading national campaigns to break down stigma and save lives. Quite simply, there wouldn't be a Men's Health Week without people like Mark, so we're really incredibly lucky to have him with us today. You guys want to say hello?
Hello there. It's great to have you all with us today for today's session, and that men's health just got this great platform and what we can do to really drive it forth today.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. It's Mark here, and well, a very kind introduction, Dave. Flattering. Thank you very much. Team game. We're all involved in this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to turning some talk into action today, Dave. So yeah, thanks for the introduction. I'm really pleased to be with this panel today. It's going to be an exciting chat. So thank you.
Definitely. And we've also built in a short 5-minute movement break halfway through, led by yourself, Aaron. So everyone will leave this session feeling better and not just thinking differently.
Perfect.
Right. So let's start with a quick poll. Get people's opinions out there. What's the biggest barrier to supporting men's health in your organization today? Is it A, a lack of engagement from men? B, stigma and silence around the topic? C, no clear strategy or ownership? D, leadership doesn't see it as a priority or budget issues? Or E, not sure where to start? So if you want to pick your choice there. Just let the votes come in. Right, it's a competitive poll, I have to say. 32% stigma and silence around the topic. 30% lack of engagement from men, 18% no clear strategy or ownership, 14% not sure where to start, and then 6% leadership doesn't see it as priority, which is a good thing, I think, in terms of that lower percent on that one. Thoughts on that? 32% for stigma and silence around the topic. Is that surprising, Bernadette?
I wouldn't say so at all. I think there's an immense sense of vulnerability around opening up about in the men's health space. For all we talk about combating stigma and stereotypes that still exist. So that's why it's so important to have sessions today and getting everybody involved in the conversations and demonstrating that it doesn't just have to be men championing men's health, which is hopefully how we overcome some of these challenges demonstrated in the poll.
Definitely. Mark, Aaron, anything to add to that?
Well, I'm always interested in a couple of things there. I mean, on the lack of engagement from men. So, the challenge is always, is it the way that you're trying to engage men rather than the lack of engagement from men? So it's something for people, colleagues, and all of us to reflect on. And also this issue, bigger pictures things about no clear strategy or ownership. And I think from a governance perspective in organisations, it's really important to have somebody who owns this, not only in driving it, but also is accountable too. So two really, really important areas there that have been flagged up.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, the lack of engagement from men. I think, I find that a really interesting comment. But I think a lot of comes into creating, like as Mark said, is creating the right environment where men can engage, that is authentic to men. And I think it's interesting, there's a lot of HR that isn't male driven. It's, and I think we have to start kind of working together on creating environments where that takes place.
Yeah, 100% agree. Creating that safe space that people feel comfortable in kind of sharing their feelings and speaking up. So let's get into it. First question of the day is to you, Mark. You've been in this space for a long time. Are we really making progress, or are we still stuck in the kind of, man up and crack on era?
We're betwixt and between, if you like. So we're certainly not in the latter about man up and crack on, but we are in some places, and also we are making progress as well. So I think we're in this kind of transitional stage, which is good because 5 years ago we were literally just in the man up and crack on era. And I think we're certainly seeing this in a number of areas. I mean, first of all, there is the government's call for evidence for a men's health strategy in England. And we hope that once there is one in England, then the other three nations will have one as well. And I think the importance of the men's health strategy isn't just about what's in it. And we've got over 100 people on 125 people here at the moment, and all 125 of you must actually put in evidence for that. It's not a request, it's a demand. So apologies, but this is a once in a generation opportunity. We've been campaigning. Pepe have been certainly part of that for a men's health strategy for well over a decade, and there's successful ones in Australia and Ireland. And the key things about that is that it isn't just about the government trying to understand how to prevent issues concerning men's health, whether physical and mental, but also looking at how to improve access. Also, we still have to make sure that men have some responsibility for their own health, but also making sure that society is actually not stigmatizing men. So the government are looking for evidence from individuals, so men and women, but also from organisations and practitioners and academics. So actually, for many of us here, we'll probably be able to put in two submissions from different perspectives. The important point above the strategy is that it actually creates something where men's health is seen as an area of professional practice, public policy, and also employment practice. So it isn't just about the detail, it's what it signals and says more widely. And so I think that the strategy is a stepping stone to help all of those wider conversations. And so, as I said, everybody should actually take part in that. Some of us have been in the trenches for a long time, so it is a success that we've got this, but it's dependent on everybody here and others actually taking part. So we're in a better place than we were 5 years ago. Somewhere to go, but we're on the right track.
Yeah, it's really great to hear how far we've come in the last 5 years. Like you said, from moving on from that man up and crack on era. How vital is it that people get that evidence in?
Oh, absolutely vital. In the government, I mean, we've been working with the Department for Health, and you got Secretary of State Wes Street is fully committed to this. So, so it's absolutely vital, and it's part of this wider pattern. We're seeing more employer support groups. We're seeing a huge growth in community-led support charities, men's sheds, and Andy Man's clubs, and all of these happening. So there's a real movement. The strategy helps that, but there's a broader movement there. And of course, the work that yourselves are doing in not only in marking Men's Health Week, but also having a men's health section and an offer, it is a huge leap forward. So it shows progress that is being made. We just got to continue.
Yeah. And Bernadette, you're on the ground with men every day. What's the other thing? What's the one thing you wish employers knew about what it's really like to be struggling with health as a man in the workplace?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I did have an eye on this question was coming, hence not peeking too soon with the response to the poll, because prior to knowing the results of that, I'd my area really, what I've got eyes on, the immense sense of that vulnerability. So whether it's that ad hoc check-in with an employee or the more formal one-to-one, if you ask the question, how are you doing? Are you okay? It's often met by fine, almost regardless of where a man is on either the feelings or the symptoms scale. And I think as well, the importance of acknowledging those men who go silent in the workplace, who can appear like they're becoming increasingly withdrawn, or that they're not investing in the work, and that these can be real signs that a man's struggling, and why it's really important for employers, which many do, but there can still be work to be done about creating this supportive environment. And as Mark referenced, that ability to engage in different ways with men in the workforce, which I know those of you who have access to PEPI 2 will be aware that we try and provide this, whether it's writing messages, so it takes the pressure off of having to speak to a person directly, or even just reading articles or looking at videos. So it's almost opening up those different channels of communication that will help different natures to engage in the workplace.
Yeah, I think I can hold my hand up and be guilty of when someone sometimes asks me how am I say I'm grand, an Irish saying, but what does that actually really mean? Are you
Yeah,
okay? Or are you just saying that to keep the other person quiet?
yeah, yeah. Keeping yourself safe. I would say you put your walls down, don't you? And many of us will do it, but I think men especially are at risk of doing this, especially at points where really a bit of support can help prevent them reaching that critical or dangerous point in their life and in their health.
And in terms of, and this is kind of a question to the full panel here, why the workplace has to step up. When we say this is a workplace issue, what do we actually mean? What's the cost of staying silent or actually doing nothing?
Well, I think personally, I think in the workplace, it has to look beyond, say, productivity, efficiency. Of course, you want to protect your workforce, for example, you want to achieve those things, but you also want to protect your workforce. You don't want a place typically of high turnover. And those figures that you mentioned at the beginning, Dave, the 1 in 5 dying before the age of 65, these are our colleagues. So we do need to invest at work, and it's not just about protecting that that role, it's protecting that person, but you're also investing in your workplace and helping guard against, I think, the negatives that can come in. And also really the importance to have it on everybody's radar in the workplace, because that's how you get a better investment and buy-in if there's greater understanding. So for example, women in the organisation, if they have a better understanding, then often they will help to champion men's health also. And I think we've seen increasing support and allyship across organisations. If I pick on a topic area such as menopause, I think they've set up some really great support, and men have been fantastic allies. And now we're in the moment where we almost need to capture that within men's health.
I mean, just building on that, I mean, I was looking through some Office for National Statistics figures that came out last week, because I lead such an exciting life, and but it was around economic productivity, which, you know, I'm here from the Centre for Policy Research on Men and Boys, which we launched just a month ago, and we're looking at the economic productivity for the country and men not being in work. And, you know, at the minute, I mean, last figures last year, 68 million days lost due to men being off sick, for 4 days per man. And also, if we're going to grow economically as a country, which of course will benefit all the businesses here, not only in the workforce, but more people in work means more customers with money to buy your products and services. We need a million more men in work to meet employability targets that the government have set to help grow the economy. And so it's a million working age men who are not in work who should be, and could be. So there's a wider societal and economic imperative in addition to the specific ones for the organisations here. And my last point, and I'm becoming more and more of a working class warrior in terms of you can probably, you know, Southeast London sound like a chimney sweep dialect, which and the reason I say that is my challenge often to employers is that when you're looking at how you're engaging men's health, is not think about Andy in accounts. It's to think about reaching Lee on the lorries and Dave on the drains. So sometimes we've got to think about, it isn't about those people, not who are working in, broadly speaking, white collar roles, but those in blue collar roles, the men who are actually working outside, and maybe insecure employment, insecure hours, or different types of work patterns. So that's always my challenge, you know, think about how you're going to reach Lee on the lorries and Dave on the drains.
Yeah, and it's something that we actually, like myself, speak to clients about a lot. We have a lot of like offline workers or workers who are on site on building sites, and how do we actually get them using Peppy and you know, not being afraid to use it and speak to others. Bringing Aaron into the conversation, from your experience working with so many organizations, what sets apart those who talk the talk from those who truly walk it?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting actually here listening to Mark just then. It's kind of made me reframe what I'm thinking about this, you know, because my answer to that question is creating like visual example of that, leaders and organizations setting the example where it becomes policy to take time out for, you know, I'm taking a very lifestyle orientated kind of step on this whole conversation today, but therefore like making it, you know, I'm thinking about making it visible that people should be taking and including health breaks into their schedules, having enough time at work to take a decent lunch break, understanding what a decent lunch is, having that education piece around it, you know, taking that time for a movement break. Also, not feeling the pressure to be that warrior that is the last person standing in the office or at home, but, you know, and therefore being able to put down the phone, put down the emails, spend time being present at home, and therefore that all interacts with your health and your lifestyle, and being able to take the time for yourself, which hopefully then cuts down, is a preventative measure and cuts down kind of illness and whatnot. But actually listening to Mark just there and talking about the blue collar workers, that's made me really rethink that, is actually because they don't have your calendars, they don't have your Google calendars and your diaries where they get the opportunity to see what the CEO is doing. So I actually think it's more of actually a question for me now, is actually, and maybe it's back to Mark, is like, how do we get that message down to that front line from the top down, from, because it's very easy for me to see my CEO taking a walking lunch break and making it visible and diarized, and that starts to encourage me to make that change. Or they block out that evening time, but you don't see that on the front line because you don't have that access in the same way. So it's kind of posing more questions than answers at this point.
Definitely. And do you think, I know Mark was coming off mute there, but is it a case that from the top down, more example needs to be given in terms of like setting time to invest in yourself, to take those breaks, or to.
I was certainly going to lead on to as well that actually, those examples where I'm in contact with CEOs and stuff like that, the ones that have those really kind of productive healthcare, preventive healthcare systems set up and initiatives in place, are the ones where they're from the top down. And I've got a couple of friends who have different companies in very different areas of industry, and they do a really fantastic job of leading by example. They have quite male workforces, both of them, and they do a really great job of almost making it is the done thing to stay healthy and active. But I think the biggest thing they drive that with is an absolute lack of ego. They're not driving it with ego. It's not a competition. It's just they truly understand the benefit that it has, and it feeds down. But then again, they are both in environments where they're able to be in more visible contact. So my thing would be companies ensuring that they are in visible contact with all levels of employees.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, and it doesn't harm, people in senior levels to be present on the factory floor, for example, and get men together and have a chat to them. Also, the big growth of employer support groups, really important. Been a big explosion of those. So having the leadership actually saying we want these, part of their, organisation DEI work, for example, and also things like recordings, and also sometimes even posting information to men's houses, for example. So, again, going old school, not just relying on email, and all of that type of thing. So reaching those particular men, and I'm sure colleagues have actually got on here have also got great ideas they can put in the chat or questions and whatever as well.
And I was just going to say, in response to that, it's not just a win for the individual, but putting things like that in place in the workforce, especially, whether it's driven by somebody up top or the team lead, it really drives forward teamwork as well. So improving men's health, but bringing people together, it's a great opportunity for that.
Yeah. Ultimately, really just creating a really positive, open culture, which is what you want. Shifting gears a little bit, like what, in terms of talking about what good looks like, Bernadette, what does a genuinely great men's health strategy look like today in 2025, not just on paper, but in the day-to-day experience?
Well, I'm conscious I'll not take away from what Mark may well say as well, in terms of this is why the importance for the responses. We need people's lived experiences and feelings to be input into that. But when it comes to the strategy, I think it needs defined, things that we know we need to improve. We already know that by those figures you presented at the beginning of the session. So we've got those to work towards. But we need to link them up with, actions, things that we can deliver on, things that you can put in place. So that to me is what it looks like. It needs to be something putting into action, achievable as well. It's pointless making pie in the sky goals, whereas we need something where we can make sustainable, incremental improvements in men's health that really was setting it out, for positives for the future, where we're not going to go backwards, where it feels like a token gesture that we're throwing it out there. But also, I know in relation to what Mark said, it's not just about looking at this in isolation. It's not just going to be something really simple. It's a very complex system. All of our natures are different within men. They are different. So how are we going to reach the maximum audience of men and get them engaged with whatever the strategy sets out? So I think communication as well is such an important feature when it comes to the strategy.
And Mark, what's happening at government or policy level that HR and benefits leaders really need to have on their radar?
Well, I think at a national level, it is about economic productivity, which then because because the thing is the economy is not growing as it should be. There's too many men and women are unemployed, etc. So at the government level, they're obviously putting in measures to try and address that, and obviously employers have their own part to play. I mean, my view is that whatever's in the men's health strategy is going to be quite broad, and it's really one of the areas we're pushing for is around men having accessibility, doing the NHS health checks on industrial estates, for example, but also saying, does government want to say to employers that you should be giving men over 40 2 hours off every few years so they can actually access the NHS health check and other health checks. But also, the issue we're saying about access to health is that GPs only open 9 till 6. A lot of men work outside of that. It might not be where men are actually based. So a lot of it, we're looking at access. But one thing we would always say to employers is there's nothing stopping you having your own men's health strategy. You obviously have a women's health strategy, but as well. But there's nothing, organisations don't need to rely on the government to take proactive action. And the fact that so many are here and obviously work with Peppy is a clear indication on that. But have your own men's health strategy. Don't that's tailored to your male employees, and one obviously for women too.
And for a follow-up question to that, I suppose for any people on this call today that are thinking, okay, we're thinking about a men's health strategy, or it's not something we have in place, but it's definitely on our radar, and maybe that's why they came to this call. Where do you put those foundations in place, and like, is it how much time goes into it, and can you speak a little bit about that?
Well, first of all, you need to you need to get the data. So, just briefly, you need to find out what is happening with the health of your male workforce. So, how many days off they're taking, any particular issues, especially if you look at suicide and construction, it's 3 times higher than for men working in offices, for example. So, understand actually your male workforce, where they live, their age, etc., collect that data, and then actually have some targets that you want to reduce the number of men being off sick by 20%. But how you do it, i.e., not expecting men to come into work when they're ill. So it's about and building on that, it's about your overall culture. I think we've all seen the line that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So unless you've got a proactive, positive employment culture, then whatever you do will always butt against that. So understanding your workforce and seeing what you can change. The last point is enabling, and it comes back to the culture, consequence-free conversations, because coming back to the point right at the start of the poll, so many men will not come forward and talk about particular health problems that they may have, because the consequences for them in terms of their employment. And it's even more so for men as they get older and in more physical jobs, because if it's found that they can't physically be able to do that job anymore, then that has substantial risk, not just for them, but also their wider family as well.
Yeah, I think what you said at the start there around the data piece is really important for getting buy-in as well from like senior leadership and C-level. Like if they see the cold hard facts and the data behind it, it can be a bit of a wake-up call for them being, saying, come on, we need to put the foot down and get going on this. So yeah, that's some great points. Um, we're seeing more conversations about employers' legal obligations around men's mental health, especially when it comes to stress and suicidal risk, which I know you kind of touched on there. Let's dig into that a little bit more, Mark. And then anyone else who wants to chime in. Where does legal responsibility come into this? What should organizations be thinking about when it comes to the duty of care of that?
Well, I was going to hand over to Bernadette on that, so I can talk about the moral responsibilities, but I'm in learning mode as well, so I'll pass that over. Sorry.
No problem, Mark. Well, I think you referenced, for example, the women's health strategy. There's nothing specific to men for the workplace. In the UK, we've got the legislation such as the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974 and the Equality Act 2010, and that mental health, physical health really should be treated equally. But this is where we know the difference comes in. Those figures do come into play because we know men are at higher risk in certain areas. And this is really what can be a challenge, I would say, within some organisations, especially for men who may not open up about, for example, the stress that they may be under until perhaps it's reached that critical point. So they're the main areas from the legal perspective, hence why it's so important we create these environments within organisations in order to help men better engage. And I'll just touch on, I'm very conscious on this, Paul, we've got a whole host of people in the audience, whether it's people who have access to PEPI or do not, maybe HR and benefits leaders or users of our service. And it's so important everybody is able to attend sessions such as today so that the information can be shared with everybody, hopefully reaching that person, whether it's on the shop floor or, the lorry driver may be looking at it as a recording, because we need to help everybody get better informed about what should be happening in the workplace and how we can make improvements in the workplace that will hopefully also benefit men in their day-to-day lives. So I'll hand over to you, Mark, as well, to take it up on the moral front.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's just that, we still in the public and private sectors, companies are there. I'm getting all philosophical now, but companies aren't just there to make a profit. They only exist because they're meant to be doing public good, and therefore there is a moral imperative for companies to do as much as they can, not only for their workforce and the communities that their workforce live in, but also for their customers. And sometimes it's very much focused on workforce, but we see a lot of companies, including it's more so in the blue collar space, actually doing far more to support the to support their male customers as well as obviously female customers. And I think that should be encouraged because because the more we can get, the healthier the nation is, the healthier men are in general, as well as women, the better it is for the economy and your business and your public service. Reduce demand on your public service if it's in health prevention. So we got a moral imperative for the men, their families, society, and also for the public in general, including your customers.
In terms of engagement that works, Aaron, what are some of the best engagement tactics you've seen with male employees that you've worked with? Is there anything that's really surprised you?
Yeah, there's so one that really that really got me, and something that I will repeat over and over again, is there's DIY retail company, and they came up with this really fantastic initiative with DIY kind of, I'll call them fitness kits, but they were really kind of like overall health kits that were left in male locker rooms. So, they'd be in the male locker room in the morning. They'd have, a little set of resistance bands with a workout card. They would have, a protein bar in there. They'd also have like these little workout cards, like breathing exercises and the importance and how that can like help manage your stress, that kind of acute daily stress. Some affirmations on those cards as well. So I thought that was a really interesting way of like taking the equipment, taking the thing to the man, and putting it in a way that was really kind of like, I would engage with that. When I heard that, I was thinking, yeah, that would be something that would take me back, even if I didn't actually do the exercise. I would certainly have a read of the stuff, and it's then creating that kind of awareness around it. So I thought that was really cool. And I have to say as well, this is a point where I can big up Peppy too, right? I really love seeing and hearing about the nutrition, like the bake-offs that happen, right? And these bake-offs are taken with some sort of a healthy kind of slant in mind, but I really love seeing the effort that people go to there. Both men and women are getting stuck into those like bake-off challenges, and for me, it's about creating the right environment where then people will talk about their health, and that is a perfect way of getting people talking about their nutrition in a way that's non-confrontational, in a way that doesn't put blame on people. And also the fact that we've got, B and our HR team are working on things like our Men's Health Day in the office. And I think that's absolutely fantastic, and something Peppy have a heavy kind of female orientated workforce. There are only a few of us that are male, right, Dave? Yet they have taken that opportunity, and what they've identified is we don't have that many men in the company. However, so how can we make it still work? And therefore the focus of the day is helping the men in your lives. I think that's fantastic. I think that's absolutely brilliant. So, a big shout out to like Bernadette and our HR team for thinking about those initiatives ourselves as well. I think that's great.
And I'll just dive in there, Aaron. I know we've segued slightly, but I think we are fortunate with our joined up work and where we can collaborate so much, and we know that works so well in engaging men, and it almost removes many of those barriers men in the outside world, or perhaps men who haven't got access to our services, face in things are segregated so much. So if you want to talk about your health, it's typically a problem. It's a negative. Yeah. Your opportunities for engaging with fitness, nutrition, well, they're there, but to what degree is it really being promoted in your life if you're not already actively engaging with that or haven't in your past? So yeah, just a little segue there, Dave. Back on track.
Oh, good. Yeah, and Aaron, what you were saying there, I know this really shouldn't matter, but it's relatively low cost as well for businesses, to provide these things, especially the bake-off, that's obviously free, but the other stuff you're talking about, like, it's relatively low cost for high gain. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
great points. Bernadette, tell us about peer champions. So, who are they? How do we find them? And how can they shift culture from the inside out?
Oh, well, absolutely. So these are champions within the workforce who really promote the well-being of men. What you'll find, and certainly in my experience, for some, they will be naturally good at opening up, be really vociferous, be loud, be proud, be out there. But for others, they may be really quieter. But what you'll find with your workforce is different members of your workforce engage differently, and that they may well engage more in a group that contains these different personality types. Like with anything, I think in the mental health space, one size doesn't fit all. I'm very conscious of the different sizes of organisations. I know Aaron's just referenced a female-dominated workforce that we do indeed have, so it can be a challenge in smaller workplaces or depending upon the makeup of your workforce, but just creating that opportunity, because I would say from the ground up, peer-to-peer champions helping normalise and conversation. So whether that's around mental health, physical health, or it can, and I know we plough so many efforts into it, set up a group if you haven't got one. You know, it mightn't be that you're facing a real challenge within your organisation at this point in time, but the view could be from the preventative health side, because we know, hopefully for the future, that's where we can make really great improvements. So that's really an overview of the peer-to-peer champions.
Is it important, do you think, just very quick follow question, the different levels of seniority of champions, do they have to, does a mix or more appropriate to be senior? What do you think?
I think look at your group, you know, your workplace, and as something I'm very conscious of from my position, it's not uncommon for a man to engage and have concerns about confidentiality. Now, you're not going to have that, you know, obviously with peer-to-peer champions, you typically appear in front of each other. So I would say be sensitive to your working environment. If it's something very new to your organisation and you know that you really struggle to get men engaged, really start at the ground level with perhaps a group that's, you know, directly relatable. But absolutely, I think there's a great advantage to including a huge different range of individuals in that conversation. What you actually might find is you've got more in common than what you realise, but you almost don't want to put somebody's barriers up front. So you want to show the, you know, the shared values and experiences, rather than possibly making people concerned or feeling, I would say, judged, is really important when it comes to setting up groups. If it's a large organisation, do it in a linked up way, have a plan. It's great to see so many initiatives that employers have, but we know, especially for some large organisations, if these spring up in different areas, then almost that limits you in terms of your success if there's not some kind of plan or some communication between the different groups.
Okay, cool. I've got to be quick here. We've got a minute or two. We're going to do a quick fire round and then we're going to move into Aaron's movement break. So I think there's 3 questions, 1 question each. Let's be as quick as we can. I know we can speak all day on these topics, but first one for you, Bernadette. What's one mistake you see too many companies making on men's health?
Quickly appearing reactionary, I would say, rather than, and that leads into the last response, rather than having that methodical approach, which gets you better buy-in.
Yeah, spot on. Mark, what's one sign of real progress you've seen recently?
The big growth in employer support groups, which as part of the DEI conversation, that's been phenomenal in the last couple of years.
Brilliant. And Aaron, what's one thing employers could do tomorrow to do better?
Make it accessible and come up with creative ways to start the environment that makes conversation easy.
Yeah, I think accessibility, big theme we're kind of seeing in this conversation. So definitely. Okay, let's get to, I'm going to hand this over to you, Aaron. It's time for us to get up and get moving. Because sitting for an hour talking about men's health without actually doing something for your health, that's a bit ironic. I will say you don't need a gym kit, just 5 minutes of feel good movement for your mind and body. And while we're at it, this is exactly the kind of thing men need more at work, like you said. Your well-being matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dave. And you don't even have to stand up for this, guys. This is something you can do at your desk. What I've kind of thought about creating with a lot of the conversation is doing something that is absolutely accessible wherever you are. You can be doing this from home right now. This is going to be a nice little reset. This is like you pushing the reset button. If you've had a particularly stressful situation, you know, this is that opportunity to clear your head. This is a little bit of kind of a great way to start some productivity. It's to get the blood flow going, get the brain a little bit more active as well, but also taking a moment to be present with yourself, which is really important too. So this is something that you can do. This is also something you can share with your workforces as well. And we have all this sorts of stuff in the Peppy app too. So let's get it going. I want you to all join in as much or as little as you feel like you can at this point. We're going to go with a few different phases. We're going to start with a bit of squeeze and relax. So what we're doing now is we're going to generate a bit of tension, but then by generating some tension and letting it go, it's almost like when you do a bit of a stretch and you push against the stretch and then you let it go and you go a bit further. This is what we're going to get without having to have anyone else in the room. So we're going to do a bit of squeeze and relax to begin with. What I want you to think about doing is we're going to create some tension, and we're going to do it generated through the hands, the arms, up into the shoulders and neck. And what we're going to do, and you can have your hands down by your sides. I'm going to show you my hands up. We're going to squeeze and we're going to create some tension for about 5 or 6 seconds. And then I'm going to get you to release that tension and take 2 big breaths, really letting everything kind of just drop and sink. Okay, so we're all going to do this together. I'm going to squeeze through the hands, through my arms, and also I'm going to squeeze up through my shoulders if you can do that too. So ready? We're going to go in 3, 2, 1. And squeeze. Start building tension. Start building tension. Build the tension further, further, further. 3, 2, 1, and relax and let it drop. Take 2 deep breaths. Take another deep breath. And we're going to go again 3 more times. So 3, 2, 1. Build the tension, engage, squeezing through the front and the back of the arms, squeezing the forearms, squeezing the hands, squeezing the shoulders. 3, 2, 1. Relax. As you breathe in and out now, just be conscious of how you feel. Take that moment just to kind of tune into yourself. And we're going to go again in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Let's build it up, team. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Getting some muscles working, acting, switching on, switching on, switching on. 3, 2, 1, and switch off. Physically, we've got to switch on and be able to switch off too. Important to recover, important for brain, muscle, everything. Let's do it one more time. 3, 2, 1, and go. Big squeezes, guys. Let's go. Hold, 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 maintain, 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 and relax and take a couple of deep breaths. Well done. From there, we're going to move into a nice little bit of self-massage, right? This is something that men need to take care of themselves, and there's nothing wrong with having a bit of a pamper. So we're going to pamper ourselves right now. So I want you to start at your hands and just give your hands a bit of a kind of a wring out. You can wring out your fingers, give them a bit of a stretch, wring out your hands, wring out through the wrist. Give yourself a kind of a bit of massage. Just take a moment, get a thumb in on kind of any kind of points of pressure up the arms. And I want you to just kind of take a moment, and we're going to just take half a minute on each arm. So just kind of get in there. If you feel a bit of tension somewhere, feel a bit of pressure, spend a bit of time on it. Have a little rub on it. Just take that moment for yourself. Again, this is you looking after you, right? No one else is needed. There's nothing wrong giving yourself a bit of a massage. 3, 2, 1, switch sides, same on the other side. Again, getting into the hands, the wrists, the fingers, and then we're going to have a little move. So what we've done here is we've kind of created some tension and relaxation. We've now enhanced that relaxation and blood flow with a little bit of self-massage, and now we're going to move it out, team. So what I want you to do is we're going to do a little bit of movement in 3D. So all I want you to do is kind of imagine you're sweeping the floor and sweeping up towards the ceiling. So just going with me. So just nice little reach out in front, up and behind, and kind of really try and get back there a bit. Don't be afraid to like get that chest involved. Open up the chest. That's it. And then let's go a little bit of kind of hug and open up that way. So hug and open up horizontally. So we're getting the joints moving in 3 directions, in 3 dimensions. Our body, all our joints are able to do that. Really looking after ourselves, really getting it going. And one more time, last one, a little bit of crowd wave. Imagine you're in the crowd, you're at your Bruce Springsteen concert. You're having a bit of a crowd wave going. And 3, 2, one, relax there. So you've just taken a moment for yourself, and that for me is the biggest key point. It's not what you do, it's not how intense it is. It doesn't have to feel manly. It's like it's getting some good self-care done in just a few minutes. And I don't know about you, I actually feel like I'm back in the zone, ready to kind of get on with the rest of my day now. So hopefully that was useful.
Perfect, Aaron. Thanks very much. I certainly find that useful. Feel a lot more clear-minded, loosey-goosey, all good. This is what you want. Okay, let's kick on. We've got about 8 or 9 minutes left. So what we're going to do now is Q&A from questions that have come in from our audience. So I'm just going to go through them. There's quite a few, which is great to see. Okay, so this is for the three of you guys. So jump in whenever you feel you want to kind of chime in on answering this. First one, when it comes to men not being work, what are the contributing factors to this, and what can businesses do to support this? Who wants to have a go at that?
Sorry, Dave, I missed the beginning of the question.
I'll go again. When it comes to men not being in work, what are the contributing factors to this, and what can businesses do to support this?
I think in terms of employment, I think in in terms of not being employed, I don't know. I think there's challenges in terms of the job availability. I think there's some concerning statistics regarding younger men not entering the workforce.
Maybe one for Mark. Yeah, Marcus,
I
you
don't
about
know.
this earlier. Do we have 1 million men out of work, Mark, that should be in work or that we want to have in work?
Yeah, 1 million men more we wouldn't have him work. But
What
also
are,
we have 300,000 men who are on long-term sick and want to work. So again, looking at those figures, 300,000 men who are long-term sick but want to work, and it's how we can get those men in the workplace. And
Yeah,
also
forgive me, I didn't go from that angle.
Okay, perfect. Let's move on. Any thoughts about how you might meet the challenge of engaging large groups of blue collar workers with a majority ethnic minority backgrounds with a level of sensitivity that doesn't necessarily point a finger at perceived culture norms and stigmas that typically turns away from well-being support?
And I can speak from personal experience with this at Peppy. I think what we've seen is men from certain groups do find it easier to reach out in that judgment-free space. It's about how we get that into organisations, and again, normalising the conversations. I think we do it very well in certain circumstances, highlighting the differences, for example, health risks between different ethnicities. I think, for example, prostate cancer, we've got a real platform for doing that, but we need to get better at doing that within the workplace about other issues that aren't necessarily, for example, directly associated with something like cancer. So I think it's about presenting things more obviously in the workplace and taking opportunities, whether it's around awareness days or certain areas that may affect one population greater than another, and creating more awareness about this. But what we often find is, many of the same things will affect us, but our risks might be different. And it's how we get everybody better informed, so it doesn't just feel like we're targeting one group with possibly negative connotations, but making it available to everybody.
Perfect. Another question that came in. Stress is the second largest cause of unplanned workplace absence. The Health and Safety at Work Act 1974 is, along with the Protection from Harassment Act 1997, the only employment law that goes beyond the confine of civil law. Should these facts be leveraged to get business leaders to take this issue more seriously? One for you, Mark, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, yes, that it should be leveraged. And again, tie it back to economic productivity in the workplace. I mean, I think that that's really, really important. And also getting that culture right. I mean, if you've got a bullying, toxic culture in your workplace, then that's going to, and that sometimes that can come from the top, or if it's in the middle management or management, it's kind of overlooked by the people at the top purposely. So it's about making sure your culture is empowering and not toxic. It's really important.
Perfect. We've got time for a couple more, I think. Let's go with here's a question from someone in the crowd. I get the sense that men's issues have been deprioritized in a world where so many other groups who have been historically been underrepresented are now being championed and their issues being given a voice. We know that inclusion means everyone though. So how would you help men feel their issues still needs attention and support, that they should also have a voice?
Well, I would come in on that in terms of like making sure that men are included in your DEI work, but visibly included. So often, I mean, there's a lot of talk about male allies, to help women do better in work, which obviously everyone supports. But some of the DEI conversations kind of swung back now about who's going to be allies to men in work. And so I think the issue is to make sure that your DEI policies not only apply to men in your workplace, but are seen to. So men feel that actually all of this work does include them, and that and so therefore you will engage in those men, but you've got to be visible and you've got to be explicit that it includes them.
Yeah. And last question, and I'd like the three of you to chime in if we can. Have you seen any great examples of campaigns or communications that cut through with male employees? So thinking of like, trying to think of like online and offline workers, like I've seen questions come in the Q&A about like, we do quarterly newsletters. Like, is there anything else cutting that you've seen that works?
I've seen in a larger organisation how they address things fantastically. I mentioned the link up of the peer-to-peer support groups, but also they had, like they planned, they had a men's health steering committee, and when they've had something in person, as well as the big talk in the auditorium, they then had that breakaway room for a very engaged panel that included men from the workforce. So just, that flows into the communication and availability, accessibility work.
Spot on.
From my perspective, just quickly, around International Men's Day, which in November, and this having videos of men in your organisation from all different roles talking about their own mental health. So, top brass, big cheeses in your organisation, down to the guys on the shop floor and Laura's getting peer-to-peer video, couple of minutes really works, really encourages men at all levels to get support. So use the men in your workplace.
Yeah, to say echo, like using the men in the workplace and using it, much like Mark said before, is using the men in the workplace to design those actions, to design those projects and to design those initiatives, because I think it's really important for men to take some ownership of it. But also, we kind of innately have a good understanding of how it can be taken by other men. I've seen some examples the other way where it hasn't quite landed well because it's quite obviously been not kind of no men have been part of the process, and therefore the communication, the wording, the tone, and actually what's being asked doesn't land well. So yeah, echo Mark there.
Brilliant. I know we're at time. We're very, very nearly done. Very last thing we're going to do is just get a quick temperature check on where you're at now. So very quick poll. Has this event increased your awareness of the importance of providing tailored men's health support in the workplace? A, absolutely, it gave me a new insight. B, not really, still processing it. Or C, I was already on board with this. Let's get some votes in and we can see where we're at the end of this thought-provoking session. 60% absolutely it gave me new insight, which is great to see. And then a lot of people already said they're already on board with this. So it's really, really great to see those results. Massive thank you to Bernadette, Aaron, and Mark for bringing the honesty, the heart, and the practical advice. Here's the challenge I'll leave you with. Don't let this just be a nice lunchtime hour that fades away after 2 p.m. Use it. So share what you've learned, start that awkward but important conversation, review your strategy, and ask men in your team what they actually need. And if you're wondering where to go next, we've got something for you. We've put together 5 complimentary peppy expert sessions covering key topics in gender inclusive health and well-being, all led by the same qualified practitioners who support our clients every day. These are perfect to share with your team, start the conversation in your workplace, or just deepen your own knowledge. So you can scan the QR code there for free access, and I'm sure we'll send it on. And let's make this Men's Health Week count. Thanks very much for being part of it, and enjoy the rest of your day.